Let's get ready to rumble! How'd I do?
That was pretty good.
I try.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestler broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV. Your thoughts on the Greg Valentine interview?
Oh, well, Greg Valentine. You know, wasn't he like all chipper?
He was.
Greg Valentine was in a really uppity mood. I kind of liked it, you know. Usually, and Greg's always been cool every time we've met him. But Greg's usually got this one speed. Greg upped the ante, you know. And it was funny. Did I tell you what I asked him? I said, "Do you remember the first time you came to see us?" And he was like, "Yeah, shorts, not a good look." And I'm like, "What? Did you know that interview with us haunted him?"
I had no idea.
He was haunted by that. First of all, he didn't realize that we're not some fly-by-night schleps, that all of a sudden, afterwards, he realized they're on cable, they've got thousands of subscribers, they're worldwide, they're on the dirt sheets. Oh, I'm wearing shorts. I look like I just came off the beach.
Still, when I watch that video, I'm always expecting like his penis just to fall right out of those shorts. I swear,
it was a
because he's got legs wide open at a lot of points in that video.
So basically, the hammer would have had a whole new meaning.
It would have had a whole new meaning.
Look what just flopped out of the toolbox.
We would like to thank the band that sings the theme song for Monte The Pharaoh and Jimmy Farrow, along with his partner Mark Griggs. Make up the band Wisteria Hall. Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as In My Dreams, This Life, Not a Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page.
How am I supposed to get the barman thing in when you go that quickly?
Well, let me slow it down. Jimmy Farrow, along with his partner, Bart Griggs, make up the band, Wisteria Hall.
Bartman! Thank you.
80% of the WrestleMania 39 tickets are sold out. The event will still more than 7 months away, but WrestleMania has become such a spectacle. It's pretty much discussed year-round at this point. The WWE held a launch party, and 80% of the tickets are now sold.
It's just amazing.
90,000 tickets in 24 hours.
Oh, yeah. WWE's really in trouble, huh? Yeah, it's good news. Not surprised.
Do you think it's because everybody's expecting The Rock, Roman Reigns?
You know what? I'm going to go with no.
Wow.
I'm going to go with it's the Super Bowl.
Doesn't matter.
Of professional wrestling.
Doesn't matter what the card is.
It's what number are we up to?
39.
I would think it's established by now. You know what I mean? I mean, the Super Bowl's up to what, 52, 53, 54, wherever it is. It's in the low 50s somewhere right now.
Right.
Look, this is established, folks. You know, much to the, grimacing of the indie crowd. Too bad. It's the Super Bowl of pro wrestling, and rightfully so.
So it doesn't matter what the card is?
I don't think it does. I think WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of wrestling, and it's established itself. It has for years. I'm not surprised at all at this. Not at all. Didn't they have over 100,000 not that long ago in Dallas? A few years back or whatever, they broke a record. I mean, stop.
If
guys,
you were going to get tickets for it,
WrestleMania.
Is your expectation Reigns, Rock, and then are you disappointed if that's not the main event?
No, I'm not, because I'm going to WrestleMania. Don't you see what
I understand where you're getting,
I'm going to WrestleMania. I'm going to see some great crap. I'm going to see stuff that's probably going to be talked about for years and years and years. So look, I've been to a few SummerSlams, and they always had things that are still being talked about for years and years and years. You're going to a major event from the most major company. It's a major thing. It's a major card. So no. Do I think that this is the year we do get The Rock and Roman Reigns? I'm pretty damn sure it is. We've been talking about this for how many years now? This has to happen. It can't go much longer, can it? You know? I mean, I'm thinking about The Rock's age, too, and his ability to perform in the ring at the way The Rock expects himself to. So I can't see this waiting much longer. If it's gonna happen, right?
No, can't.
You know,
you can't. Roy Batista's bringing up Punk Moxley AEW last night. Thoughts on that whole exchange?
I loved the exchange on the mic. I thought that the brawl was weak, but that's me. I mean, of course, it was the classic pull them apart and, oh, let me at him, let me at him. I just felt that the promos were so good that the brawl didn't match the promos. That's pretty much it. That's my take on it. You know, I loved a few of the lines that CM Punk delivered, telling Moxley, "You're always the third wheel," it seems. Which that was nice. That was rough.
Do you think
that
Punk,
was a shield
did
shot?
Punk outshine Moxley?
Again, I don't feel that he did though, because I feel that John, held his own pretty damn good. I thought he did fine. Punk had a couple of very memorable lines though, and that's the CM Punk's credit. CM Punk can shoot from the hip like basically nobody. Let's be fair. He's very good at it. He's a natural at just running his mouth. That's what's made him famous.
Absolutely.
Is being able to run his mouth. I thought Moxley played the perfect psycho tough guy. How about the cursing? What do you think about the cursing?
I think that it's ruining whatever they're trying to do, right?
Okay.
I think we discussed Howard Stern, terrestrial radio. He would always dance around the cursing
when he was on K-Rock,
which was enjoyable.
Right.
Now he's not. He's on Sirius Radio and he curses, and it's lost its effect.
I could see that.
I think if you drop enough bombs, it's like okay, and
Right.
You know what they always say, right? Mom and Dad always said, cursing is because it shows a lack of intelligence, right? A lack of artistic ability. So
was the Attitude Era infested with four-letter words?
No, not at all.
There you go.
In fact, there were none.
There you go.
AEW pulled the trigger, and they're giving Punk and Moxley
on free TV.
On free TV.
Right.
Thoughts?
I like it. I think it's.
How could you like it when you said that putting Hogan against Goldberg, and I agreed with you, on free TV?
I thought that was great.
You thought that was fine.
To
me, it was a mistake.
I was one of the few who thought it was great. I thought it was great. You know why? Because I ran to the television that night. Look, if this had been on pay-per-view, I'm not so sure I might have dropped the money. But there was something about the excitement of this. I liked the fact that it was on live television.
They didn't even give it time to breathe. J.J. Dillon came out and he said, on Nitro, this is a Thursday. This Monday, you're getting this. This is the same thing that's happening here.
I don't think it's the same thing at all, because I don't think that AEW is WCW in 1998.
No.
Number one.
No.
Number two, I don't think that John Moxley and CM Punk are Hulk Hogan and Goldberg. That's number two.
That's fair.
Okay. Number three, this match coming up this week will not be in front of 40,000 plus people in the Georgia Dome.
Right.
That's three.
Good.
Number four, neither one of these guys are dealing with a legendary undefeated streak. Can he maintain it against the greatest wrestler of all time, Hulk Hogan?
Right.
And number five, there ain't going to be anyone in that commentary booth, yeah, you too, JR, that's going to be going, when he picks him up, this place is going to go crazy, meaning Bobby the Brain Heenan as Goldberg, Jack Hammond, Hulk Hogan. Not even close. This, by the way, that match is still one of my fondest memories of the Monday Night Wars.
Okay.
I loved the live, out of nowhere, here we go, Hogan, Goldberg. Do you know what the water cooler was like that day at work with the wrestling fans?
But you got
we were going nuts. We're going to see Hogan and Goldberg tonight on Nitro.
All you did was get some more WWE fans come over and watch that match.
Yeah,
right?
Well, wasn't that the
Isn't
point?
this about making money?
I think that at this point, that was made to keep fans on the program. I think they felt that something is happening here, and we've got to do something.
So let's talk about AEW. Now you're putting your two top talents on a free match.
You know why they're doing it?
Okay, but guess what?
They're doing it because Triple H. They feel Triple H now. They're going, hey,
what if
we
you
gotta
get
do something.
900,000 people watching again? What does that mean?
That means that.
What does that mean for your pay-per-view?
But here was the difference. At least with the Hogan Goldberg thing, the ratings proved to be great that night. And it was legendary and stuff, and it didn't do anything to hurt their bigger picture. In my opinion, it didn't do anything to hurt their bigger picture. I mean, look at some of the pay-per-view matches that they did offer to us that particular year. Halloween Havoc, Hogan Warrior with the flame-throwing thing.
Right.
I mean, please, I would rather have the Monday Nitro Goldberg Hogan thing. That was just fine.
Part of the theme here is turning back time, so we're going to discuss a few events, and we'll probably go into other events that aren't even scripted.
Okay.
What would have happened if So you opened up
Okay.
first, before we hit the first subject, you opened up with, we talked about Hogan
Yeah.
being told by Vince Jr.,
Yeah.
Senior, sorry,
Vince
that
Senior,
you can't
yeah.
do the Sylvester Stallone Rocky
Right,
3 movie.
Right.
All right? Say Hogan goes, okay, Vince, I don't want to. What happens next?
Oh, dude, we could sit here for hours and speculate on that. I don't know what happens next. I really can't. I can't think of anything else that could have happened. Who was going to take? Maybe Hogan still becomes that guy.
Yo, Hogan
He
doesn't.
just doesn't have Rocky 3. Maybe he still
but
becomes
Hogan's
that
a
guy.
bad guy.
I know.
He doesn't go to the AWA and become, because he starts the AWA as a bad guy, and the movie makes him into a monster face. So maybe the explosion of wrestling never even happens.
It might not ever even happen. The only other thing, and you mentioned it the other week, maybe Sergeant Slaughter becomes an American hero and goes from a bad guy to Captain America somehow.
But
I can't see any of this happening.
It's like you can't
it
see
had
the.
to happen the way it happened. It was fate. We're actually playing with fate. Right
I understand, but
And I don't know what to do with
As
that.
much as we love Vince McMahon, I
Right.
gotta say Vince has been more luckier than good.
Vince has been smart to take advantage of circumstances as they change. That's Vince's greatest gift. Vince is a changeling. Vince can adapt.
But
and
if you
change.
think about all the things that have happened in time, a lot of them just happened
Yeah.
because.
Yes.
And that's what I talk about lucky.
What if Vern Gagne is smart enough to share merchandising with Hulk Hogan?
Sure.
We could be here all day with this.
But do you understand my
the
point?
AWA would be today's WWE.
Goldberg was made by Bischoff, right? This wasn't an accident.
No.
It was a creation.
It was.
John Cena wasn't a creation, right? John Cena was on, it's been documented, he was on the outs. Stephanie McMahon happened to walk up one day when a dude was rapping and
Right.
bing!
Right.
But again,
Right.
Goldberg was made.
Right.
Austin wasn't made. Austin happened.
Nope.
So
Right.
let's open up with this one. Graham is the world champion,
1977, 78,
and
yeah.
he goes to Vince and says, "Look, turn me face. The fans love me. We could get a little extension out of that." What if Vince Sr. said, "Forget about Backlund.
Right.
Let's do it." What happens next?
Well, does everything else stay the same in the timeline except just not Backlund? Does the timeline stay the same? Because this is what I think happens. And this is odd because it ties into our boy, like who didn't possibly do Rocky 3. Superstar Graham turns into a good guy, sells out the Garden. It's 1978. Here comes 1979. They keep the belt on him because they keep the belt on good guys, don't they?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Isn't that what they did back in the day? They could hold the belt forever. Bruno held it. Pedro held it. Okay, Bruno held it. Okay, so Graham turns. About 1980, Graham is about almost 3 years into his reign when Freddie Blassie brings out Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is a bad guy, beats Billy Graham for the belt. Hulk Hogan is a bad guy, becomes for the next 10 years the WWE's version of Ric Flair. A bad guy with a championship belt. Not Ric Flair, but the bad guy with a championship belt.
Right.
He becomes the face of the WWF for the rest of the decade as a bad guy, but eventually maybe he turns. And who causes him to turn? In 1985 or 6 or whatever year he comes in, this new guy from the other territory, this Randy Savage guy. This could all have turned completely different.
But again,
I kind of like what I just thought about.
It is, but
it's kind of
again,
interesting.
but nothing leads to the ultimate
WrestleMania?
Yeah,
No, I don't
right.
know what would lead to WrestleMania.
David Von Erich doesn't pass away in Japan. What happens?
Well, I'm not so sure Ric Flair would have had such a headlock.
That's another lucky guy.
Yeah.
Think about it. Magnum TA,
Yep.
David Von Erich.
Yep.
The list is long, right?
Yep. I always felt that David Von Erich was just amazing, and I never even got to watch the damn guy.
Right.
I lived vicariously with his career through wrestling magazines, but I knew, just looking at him, I'm like, oh, man, this guy has such it factor. David Von Erich would have been a world champion for probably a good couple of years out of those 80s when Ric Flair was. He definitely would have. He definitely would have changed a lot of things.
I think you don't see Ric Flair just goes into the sunset and he just becomes like a mid-level player.
That I
right?
can't see. I can't never see Ric Flair becoming a mid-level player because of
You know what I mean? Just like a role player. You know what I mean?
Well, I think he becomes a world champion, but I don't think he becomes the 16-time world champion. There's a big difference. Flair, you see, it's Flair's longevity combined with all those reigns during that longevity that make Ric Flair the man to
Right.
me. You know what I mean? As far as his NWA, WCW stuff. So, but I think David Von Erich would have held that belt several times during the rest of his career, and Rick might have not been the 16-time champion. It might have been like a 12-time champion, And John Cena would have the record all to himself, and that would be wrong.
Yep.
That is in
your mind. Jay Will says, what if WCW had re-signed Steve Austin?
Wow. What would they have done with him, though? I mean, if they had re-signed Steve Austin, is he somehow breaking that glass
No, he's
ceiling
not.
over there?
He's not. So that Steve Austin remains Hollywood blonde.
Okay. Does WCW win the war now? Because do you think the WWF could have still toppled WCW with The Rock, Undertaker, Mankind, DX? But do you think they could have?
Now, you got to remember something.
I
So we
still
talk
feel
about
like they
creations.
could've.
The Rock
That's
is
weird,
a
but-
WWE creation, right?
Right.
So regardless if he
Right.
didn't do well when he started off as a face, they knew well enough to turn him into a heel.
Right.
And it
Right.
worked.
Right.
So does it mean that because Austin's not here, you don't have the Vince McMahon thing?
No, you don't. You don't.
But I don't necessarily means that WCW
I don't
wins
think
the
so.
war.
I actually don't think so.
I don't
I
either.
think that there was enough ammunition on that roster between Foley and Undertaker.
Absolutely.
And so many others, DX and all the Dudley boys, everybody Vince was bringing in. I think they still would have won.
All right, so here's a question.
know.
What if they don't screw Bret Hart and let Bret Hart just turn in the title to Vince McMahon the following night after Montreal?
Nothing changes.
Really?
Nothing changes.
That I disagree with.
Well, I'll tell you why I don't think nothing changes. Because when they did the screw job, Bret Hart went to WCW and accomplished nothing.
Right.
When they did the screw job, Shawn Michaels became the champion and wound up quickly not keeping it for very long because Austin was right around the corner.
Okay.
That's why, to me, nothing changes. Stay with me. Bret
All right.
Hart was leaving.
Gotcha.
No matter what.
Makes a lot of
leaving.
sense.
He's
Yes.
riding WCW in
Right.
the air.
Right.
He's leaving.
Right.
We all know what happened. They couldn't wait for him to get there so they could scrub him because Hogan hates him and the rest of them hate him. He was not going to friendly fire. He was going to very unfriendly fire.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I don't think anything changes for Bret.
I get you on the Bret thing.
Yeah, I don't
Nothing
think anything changes
there.
for Bret.
Yep.
And as far as, if Bret, he's giving up the title, Austin was still going to do his thing. He was in the process of doing his thing. It was going to happen. So I don't feel like that much changes.
You don't get Mr. McMahon, though. Bret screwed Bret was the start of that character.
This is true, but don't forget, though, that Vince went down to, I think it was Smoky Mountain, in preparation for his character no matter what.
Yeah, but that would no. But
Did you ever see those
Yeah, but
days?
that was after the Bret screwed Bret thing, right?
I believe that Vince McMahon was going to insert himself at some point into the show.
Okay.
That it was a matter of time, if you understand what I'm saying. I do believe that was going to happen, whether he did it to Bret or not. Maybe I could be off about that. You are right; it did spearhead that, but I do feel that with Austin becoming what he was going to become, I think McMahon would have done this anyway.
Luce says Bret had too many jealous snakes in WCW to do anything cool.
That's right. That's right. It's a shame. I mean, the thing I think he's most remembered for, besides Goldberg kicking him in the head, was when he wore the medal underneath his.
Jay
his
Will
shirt.
says, "What if Tony Atlas didn't have any bad habits?"
What if Tony Atlas didn't have any bad habits? Well, we already know that S.D. Jones would have had a better resume.
Right? And according to Tony,
He might have been champion.
Tony was supposed to be battling for the world heavyweight title.
How about this? What if Tony Atlas was allowed to get unleashed on a microphone now that we know Tony the way we do?
Very interesting.
Could you imagine Tony talking the way he does now if he was allowed to do this back then?
What if Barry Windham hadn't, this is from Little Patty, what if Barry Windham hadn't turned heel to join the Horsemen?
Wow. I don't even know what to do with that one.
Man, that's one of the best angles ever because
It
it's
is.
Luger turns on Windham and then
Right.
Windham turns on Luger.
Right.
It's pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, wow.
What
Yeah.
if we leave that one alone? I like that. I like the way that turned out. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Maria Davis says, I think Bret Hart would have wrestled another 6 years if Goldberg would not have ended his career.
Agreed. Absolutely, he would have. And the real shame of it is that maybe he would have come back to Vince when he still could wrestle. because we all know that the kick messed him up terribly. And then, of course, unfortunately, he had other health problems, and one thing led to another. By the time we saw Bret Hart, it was in that horrible, horrible match with Vince. Horrible.
Yep.
So it would have been really nice to see Bret come back and still give us some great matches before he had to stop.
What if the Iron Sheik had taken Vern's money and broke Hulk Hogan's ankle?
What do you think happens there as far as what Vince does? I mean, does he just leave the belt on Hogan and say
Well,
that
Sheik's
they were-
champion.
You know,
So he breaks his ankle,
He was
right?
gonna. He was. Oh, you mean when he was originally trying
Yes.
to take the title?
Right.
Well, Sheik is fired right away.
That you know, right?
Sheik is fired. Hogan plays an injury angle. And,
But wait a minute.
you know-
Sheik breaks his ankle.
Yeah.
He's not going to let Hogan pin him.
Right.
So
You gotta-
Sheik is still your champion.
Hogan's going to be out.
Right. And Hogan's out. What do you do?
The old Jack Tunney to the rescue. You've been stripped of your title. You need a good reason? Jack Tunney never had a good reason.
You're right. That's
And Jack
fair.
Tunney's going to be like, due to his nefarious behavior and his horrible, unsportsmanlike conduct,
Right.
the Iron Sheik has been stripped of the title. A tournament will be held. Meanwhile, Hogan's ankle's going to heal. Okay?
And does Vince turn back to Backlund and give Backlund the title back?
Yes, he does. Until Hogan comes and he convinces Bob, you got to put him over for me, please. You know? Hey, look, 10 years later, Bob is getting jackknifed by Diesel and loses in 9 seconds.
I
So it's
understand.
possible you might have been able to get through to Bob Backlund, you know?
Different time, though.
It is a different
Like I
time.
said, this could
It
have
is
been a
different
lot
time. Well, then
different.
who would Bob, okay, you put the belt back on Bob. Who's Bob going to allow to take the title? Maybe Sergeant Slaughter? I mean, who would have taken the belt off Bob if Bob got the belt back due to Sheik's bad behavior?
I think Slaughter is your answer. You've named him a few times. Slaughter would have to be the go-to guy.
Yep.
But again, the way
Yep.
history shows it, Slaughter wasn't happy with his merchandise and he left.
Right.
Right.
Hey,
So,
G.I. Joe, man.
who knows?
I mean, geez.
Here's one. Who says this? Jason says, what if Warrior didn't get fired in 92 while in a tag team with Macho Man? I don't remember them in a tag team.
Yeah, I don't either. Was this when he put Vince up for ransom?
Nah, this is when he came
How many
back.
times has
and
he been fired?
That one's a little
forget how many
cloudy,
times he's
Jason.
been-
I
he
can't
gets
remember
fired.
that.
I mean, what would it really result in, though? What, Warrior and Savage go on to be a legendary tag team?
Yeah.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
How do those two would even work together? I can't even see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Macho's so meticulous, and Warrior's just running out to the ring and whatever. Ooh.
Let me see.
That's
What
weird chemistry.
JB says, what if X-Pac didn't jump on and join DX? Would a second version of DX been as big if X-Pac would have stayed with WCW?
Interesting, because X-Pac...
That's a really good one.
That's a great
'Cause that
one.
was a big comeback.
And you know something? X-Pac beautifully complimented that team, didn't he?
He did. Maria Davis says, do you think Vince made more money with Hogan as champ than Roman Reigns, who is currently the champ?
Well, you got to adjust finances for
Right.
different time periods, but I would tend to think if you wound up balancing it, Hulk Hogan is still king. I would find it hard to believe, Hogan is king.
Jason says the Ultimate Maniac. So I remember the Ultimate Maniac.
Yes,
But I don't think
okay.
I don't know if that changes everything.
Yeah, I don't really
Luce
know.
has a good one. What if Brian Pillman never got in a Hummer wreck?
I always think about what Brian Pillman could have become. I always feel that Brian Pillman could have been. I mean, he's legendary already. I mean, maybe not as much to you, but Brian Pillman is legendary with the things he managed to do in this business. He was an untapped potential. He really was.
Right.
He really, really was. He was great.
Patrick says, what if Superstar Graham decided not to give the belt to Backlund? I don't think he had a choice.
Bob Backlund would
Backlund
have
would've whipped
twisted
the shit
him
out of him.
into bookends.
Yes, I think that would have
no,
been a
he
case.
didn't have a choice.
That would have been a case of San Martino,
Right.
Buddy Rogers.
And what did,
I truly
and,
believe
what
that.
did Flair say also to Backlund that night? Please don't hurt me.
Don't hurt me.
Yeah, don't worry about Bob Backlund.
We have head-to-head, the Brainbusters versus FTR.
And for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching at home, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! How'd I do?
That was pretty good.
I try.
All
right.
We might do that move more. Maybe we'll just make a video of you doing it.
Of
'cause
me doing that?
Yeah.
Ay, oh, boy. All right, let's get to the categories.
All right.
Jared, get ready for those beautiful place cards. Category number 1 is we take our 2 opponents and we go through 5 subjects and see at the end who's better head to head. Category 1, mic skills. Talk to me. Please talk to me. Be interesting. Don't put me to sleep. Oh, you're doing it again. You get the gist, folks. Can you talk to me and keep me awake? Although lately it's been hard. Category number 2, I see math skills. All right, we are not talking Gilbert, our good buddy Gilbert. We are not talking Goldberg, our soon-to-be, hopefully, good buddy Goldberg when he comes on the show someday.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we're talking Bret Hart. We're talking.
By the way, say Lou says you're crushing it.
Thank you, Luce. Thank you. We're talking math technicians. Give me some Kurt Angle. Category number 3, do you have the it factor, or are you just the it factor? I want to know when I look at you that you've got something that's going to keep my hand from changing the channel to Laverne and Shirley reruns. You know, keep me going here. Don't make me flash back to the 70s and the 80s. I want to see what you got. Do you have the it factor? Category number 4, my personal favorite, is the back of the baseball card. Yep, I could sit there for ages and just look at all those wonderful, pretty little belts you've won. Can we say belts? Or are they saying, what are they calling them now? Titles? Championships?
I think you could say belts.
I think you could say belts because you could say wrestling again on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
To the final and 5th category, your impact on the industry. And I always say it. Are you Terry Bollea? Are you the Hulkster? Are you Andre?
So this is a tough one. I think this is a
yeah,
little tougher than
this
you
is
think.
interesting.
We've got Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson.
Yep.
Against FTR.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. 2 excellent tag teams, very similar in some ways, but that's, by design.
All right.
FTR.
Mike skills.
I'm giving it to Arn Anderson alone, but Tully can talk too. I'm giving it to the Brainbusters. I am. Yeah, I am. And that doesn't mean that Dash and, which one's Dawson, which one that. Doesn't mean that they
That's
can't
funny
talk.
you say that. I
Yeah.
think the same thing. I don't know which
Which
one.
one's Dawson, which one's
Dash
Dash.
is the ball guy. Right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to go with the Brainbusters too.
Yeah, man.
I'm
Hells
going,
yeah.
and I'm going with the Brainbusters as the 4 horsemen, right?
Of course.
The WWE, their mic skills were limited, right? Because
Yeah.
they didn't do a lot of speaking.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they still held the belts and they had Bobby with them. Yeah, no, I'm that's the Brainbusters.
All right, next up.
Was it Matt Skills?
Yep.
This is rough, okay? Because I know how great Tully and Arn are. I also know how currently great in the ring FTR is. This is hard for me, so I'm going to ask you to vote first.
I'm going to go with FTR.
Yeah, I got to agree. That one hurts. I got to agree. I'm glad you said
It's close.
Yeah, it is close.
It's
very-
close.
But you can't discard what FTR does in the
Let's
ring.
go with back of the baseball.
I'm going to go with back of the baseball card. Well, here's bad news. FTR wins this. The Brainbusters were only 2-time NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions. FTR is a 3-time WWE champion, multiple-time AEW, New Japan.
I thought they had maybe as tag team. I thought maybe they
But
had
there was
like,
a lot more.
there was other tag.
I'm
like
surprised
they had the,
as you
like
are, my
Georgia
friend.
Championship.
Exactly.
So I'm going to change it. It's going to FTR.
I'm as surprised as you are.
Okay.
That's exactly what I
Fair
did,
enough.
to take a look at that. When I saw that, I says, yeah, got to give it to FTR.
Fair enough.
So, by the way, FTR is now up 2-1.
Right.
Let's go with it factor. I'm going with the Brainbusters.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Proven point. FTR couldn't sell a T-shirt in the WWE.
Impact on the industry. Are you kidding me? Okay, there's a reason why the Revival patterned themselves the way they did as a team, and it's because the influence on the industry goes to their heroes, the Brainbusters.
I'm going to agree. Brainbusters win this.
They win this.
3-2.